Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Stacey Hansen. We've got a great show lined up for you today. My first guest is from New Awakenings. This is Kelly Kinderman. She's the owner as well as a therapist, and she's also one of our news partners. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
So today you're talking to us about eating disorders. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is? You see a lot of it in the media talking about it, but what truly is the definition?
Right. Eating disorders, you're right, you hear more and more about it now, but they've been around for a long time. But they're a really serious and sometimes life-threatening disturbance in eating patterns. And although they're treatable, they can be really complicated because a lot of times they're working in conjunction with another illness like depression or anxiety and trauma and addiction. So it can get a little bit messy, layered.
And there's a lot of different types too. Can you go into and kind of explain what those are?
You're right. There's a lot of variations to eating disorders, and it looks different for everyone. But the most well-known ones are anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. Anorexia is linked to the highest mortality rate for psychiatric disorders. People who suffer from that have a distorted idea of or perception of their body, their weight, and they tie their self-worth to that weight. They restrict their eating, their calories, and it can be really dangerous. Bulimia also is centered around weight control, but it comes from a different angle. It's easier to hide because a lot of times people who suffer from bulimia can keep their average body weight and hide it better, but they'll eat or they'll binge and then they'll force themselves to throw up or use laxatives or other diuretics or exercise excessively to maintain a certain weight. And then binge eating is exactly that. It's loss of control over how much you're eating. And most times people who have problems with binge eating are either overweight or at some point will become overweight or obese. So a lot of medical conditions that go along with that one as well.
Sure. And now, if someone out there is wondering if they have one or a loved one has one, what are some of the symptoms that people can look for?
There's a lot of them, and some are more noticeable, of course, like it's hard to hide excessive weight gain or weight loss, but also a change in social interactions. So if they're avoiding family or friend gatherings, that food is involved. If they're eating in isolation or saying a lot of times, I'm not hungry, I'll eat later, and they're never really sure if they eat. If there's a change in work performance, and more than likely your intimate relationships and friendships will be affected. But some not so noticeable ones are more devastating, actually. It's damage to our brain and our heart and our organs, bone and muscle mass wasting and breaking down, anemia, dehydration, more life-threatening things. With bulimia also looking for if you have a perpetual sore throat or swollen glands, or if you have a decay of the enamel on your teeth from overexposure to our stomach acids. So there's some things that, unless you're really close to somebody, you might not know, you might not notice, but they can be more devastating in the long run.
What types of people are the most likely to suffer from this? Is it mostly women? Is it a certain type of person, like maybe a really type A type of person?
Well, there is definitely a lot of research to try and find out, or to try and pinpoint some biological markers or social environmental things. But research does show that girls are 2.5 times more likely to have an eating disorder in their lifetime. Frequently it starts in adolescence or in your teen years, but I think it would be foolish to ignore these signs in anybody because anybody's susceptible to it, because it's not really about the eating or the food, right? It's more about some underlying internal struggle that they're going through. So I think everybody should be aware of watching for these signs with anybody in your life.
How is it treated then? Is this something that you can treat or that you can get over?
It is treatable. Unfortunately, there is a mortality rate attached to eating disorders because if they're long-term, there's other damage done to your body. But it is treatable. First and foremost, in severe cases, I would say seeking medical attention to stabilize your health again. In the context of therapy, I personally would use mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy to address some of the negative self-talk and perceptions they have of themselves, and then utilizing a nutritionist. But I think it's important to have a team of people helping, not just one.
Well, thanks so much, Kelly. It's really
Yeah.
good to get this information
Thank
out there,
you.
and maybe we help
Yes,
some people today.
It is important. Thank you for having me and allowing me to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And
Yep.
stay tuned. We'll have more Talk of the Town right after this. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. With me now is One Barrel Brewing Company. This is Peter Gentry. He's the owner. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So good to have you here. So tell us your story. How did you get started into brewing?
I got started brewing kind of as something to do with my dad. Bought a kit, and we were brewing at our family home on the stove. And then he wanted to keep brewing the same beer over and over and over again, so he took the kits to my basement, and then I started winning some contests and things like that. So I thought I might want to do it professionally, and I was also in a job that had me in touch with a lot of bars and restaurants, so I could see kind of what they were doing wrong, what they were doing right, and I could kind of get some mentors that would help me get the bar side of my business going.
So good for you for going for it and following your dream and doing what you wanted to do. Not everybody does that.
Yeah, it was a challenge, but it was well worth it.
Absolutely. So what sets you apart from other breweries? This is Wisconsin, and they're all over the place. What makes you special?
Well, we literally brew one barrel at a time, which is 2 kegs of beer at a time. So about 300 beers every day is what we brew, and it's actually about what we sell every day.
Wow.
So that's the kind of the unique part. We're able to do some really fun stuff because of that. Our small size is like Miller can't really brew a beer with beets, but we can. So coming up in a week or so, we're going to have a beer that's pink and earthy, just like a beet would be.
Have you tried that yet?
We brewed it last year, so I have, and it's a unique beer, certainly. Probably not one you're going to have 3 or 4 of, but maybe 2.
Yeah, it's worth trying.
It
Yeah,
definitely
that
is,
sounds
yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
So now I hear you're expanding also. So how's that going?
That's going really well. So we've got our little 1-barrel system at our tap room over on Atwood, and then we also put in 2 20-barrel fermenters at an off-site facility, so that we can brew about 1,000 barrels of beer in the course of 2016. So you'll see us on tap around town, starting basically right now, when we're looking to go from like 30 to 60 to 100 bars throughout the course of next year.
Congratulations, that's wonderful. So now you are brewing more beer. Can we still call you One Barrel?
You can, and everybody asks me that. But you can. We still do brew on our little 1-barrel system at our tap room, and all of our test batches go through there, and almost everything you're going to drink out of our tap room itself is brewed on that little 1-barrel system.
And people can still come to your Atwood Avenue location?
Yep, that's right. Even though we're getting bigger, we still welcome people to come in. Our brewery functions as a bar, only with beer though. So yeah, we welcome people in. We have some pretty normal hours you can check out on our website, and you can come in and enjoy a beer with us.
Do you have tours?
We do not offer tours because we're so small. We're called a nano brewery. It just means like a 3-barrel or smaller. Because we're so small, the tour will really only probably take 1 minute or so. So you can sit at the bar and you can see the entire brewery through a set of glass windows, and that's the tour.
So this is the question I have to ask. What's your personal favorite beer?
I've got a couple. Of course, a 1-barrel beer, I have to say one of my own. Our Penguin Pale Ale is kind of our flagship beer. It's a mildly hopped beer, great for those people who are kind of coming from your light lagers, your Millers, or your Buds, who want to try out craft beer. But it's also great for people that are drinking, imperial coffee stouts, to come down and have something that maybe will refresh their palate. So 1-barrel's Penguin Pale Ale, and then I also have to give a shout out to New Glarus's Moon Man is one of my favorites. It's a good, easy drinking beer. You can drink it all year round.
What are some of the other beers that you've got?
Oh boy, well, we've brewed over 60 different kinds of beers. Our flagships are the Penguin Pale Ale. We've got something called the Commuter Kolsch, which is a light German ale. So it's kind of our spotted cow, if I can say that. And then we've got something called the Bilbo Baggins Black IPA, which is a unique style. Not a lot of people do it. It's you can't really have a black pale ale, but the industry has sort of taken off with this. So it's a beer that's hoppy at the start, but finishes dark and malty like a porter. And then any of our kind of unique ones, we do a lot of sour beers, which are sort of new and interesting in America anyways. And we've always got a hoppy like a IPA rotating, and we always try to have like a dark beer. We have a beer called Care Bear Blood Imperial Coffee Stout. So it's black and caffeinated, just like you'd imagine a Care Bear's blood to be.
I don't know that I've ever imagined that before. I love the creativity though. So how many employees do you have there? Are you kind of really overseeing all this hands-on, or?
I'm pretty hands-on still. There are 8 of us. I have a brewmaster, I have a sales guy, and I have a bar manager, and then I have bartenders under that. And then as we ramp up with our expansion, we're going to probably look to add some employees.
Awesome. Well, this is so exciting. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I'm really excited to go try some of these out.
Please do. Please do.
Well, thanks so much. And you stay tuned. We'll have more Talk of the Town right after this. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. With me now is Medical Art Prosthetics. This is Greg Guillen. He's the owner. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Stacy.
So now, what is facial and somatic prosthetics?
Well, facial and somatic prosthetics is really a collection of procedures that we use to make prosthetics for people that need a prosthesis for their face, whether it's an eye or a nose or an ear. So they're actually prosthetic devices that are for people that might have had a surgery, might have had cancer, and they had surgery to remove a nose or an ear or their orbit, or they might have been in an auto accident, or a lot of children are born without an ear. So we specialize in making these devices for these people that need a facial prosthesis. And then somatic prosthesis just refers to any other part of the body. So typical somatic prostheses are considered like breast prosthetics or fingers or arms or toes. But generally these don't include what people think of as traditional orthotics and prosthetics, like prosthetic limbs, arms and legs.
So is it a medical field then?
Well, it's really not. It's the people that are involved in facial and somatic prosthetics are generally not doctors. We're considered prosthetists or anaplastologists. So we get referrals from physicians for these various types of prosthetics, but it's really not contained within the typical medical field.
So how do you attach these, like an ear, for instance? Or are they all different? How does that work?
Well, traditionally, facial prosthetics, for instance, were attached with medical adhesives. So if somebody needed to attach their silicone nose prosthesis, they'd apply a medical adhesive to the back of the prosthesis and then put it in place. For a number of years now, we've been providing more and more implant-retained prosthetics, which involves a surgical procedure to place implants in the bone. And I have some examples here I could kind of show you.
I'd love to see them.
I don't have a lot of examples, but this kind of quickly demonstrates, I don't know if that would show up on the camera, but if there's implants placed in the patient's face, then the prosthesis can attach with magnets. So it's a way of getting away from adhesives, but still both methods are used commonly.
So how did you get into doing this work? What kind of training or certification did you have to do to be able to do this?
Well, in my case, I went to school on a fine arts scholarship first, and then I went into medical illustration or medical art. And as part of the program that I was in to be trained as a medical artist, I was trained in a maxillofacial prosthetics clinic at a university where I learned specifically how to design and fabricate and fit these devices. And it was a special program conceived by a very forward-thinking dentist that realized that people that were traditional artists and trained in a medical setting but had those artistic skills would do a really good job of making prosthetics that needed to blend into the face. So I went into that training program, and that was in 1981 that I graduated from that. And then I worked at several universities in staff positions, and then I went into private practice. So there's a lot of different experiences.
So how long have you been in private practice then?
I've been in private practice 30 years, actually. I started at my first practice in Dallas, Texas in 1985. And that was kind of a very unique, actually kind of the first independent specialty practice in facial prosthetics in the country. And then 20 years later, my family moved back to the Midwest. I'm actually from Madison originally. And so in 2005, I began another clinic in Madison. So total of 30 years.
And who else works with you on doing all of this?
Well, in Madison, I work pretty much exclusively. It's my own practice, but we've tried to maintain some sort of integrity with the office in Dallas, with the woman I sold my practice to in Dallas, Allison Vest. She's a wonderful medical artist, very talented person. And then there are other medical artists formerly trained with master's degrees that I work with in California and in New York.
Well, thanks so much, Greg. This was really fascinating to learn about something new today.
Thanks.
Sure, thanks.
Appreciate it.
And you stay tuned. We'll have more coming up right after this. Welcome back to Talk of the Town. My next guest is Jenny Addis. She's a motivational speaker for Inspiration Speaks. Thanks so much for coming back on the show. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thanks for having me, and it's great to meet you finally.
So tell us your personal story. Remind our audience.
Sure. So on March 16th, 1997, I was in a tragic drunk driving accident that ultimately left me paralyzed from the chest down. So I'm considered a C5, C6 quadriplegic today. And, you know, as you can imagine, that was a huge life-changing experience for me. I was only 24 years old, and my life literally changed in a blink of the eye. So, so with that said, shortly after I was injured, I became Miss Wheelchair Wisconsin. And through that experience, I found this gift that I didn't know exist, and that was public speaking and kind of getting up in front of a group. So today I get up and I share my story and that sort of thing to anybody that I can possibly reach. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
What would you say your mission is now?
Well, my mission is to inspire, educate, and motivate, like just to inspire other people, you know, by my story, and hopefully they learn something from that in some degree. So,
what types of topics do you discuss? You do a lot of public speaking, a lot of motivational speaking. Who do you talk to, and what do you talk to them about?
Well, I talk to high schools and schools of all ages, for example, colleges, universities. I speak at conventions and conferences, and the topics can range from anything from one of the biggest being the consequences of reckless driving. So when I say that, I used to kind of say that I talk about the consequences of drinking and driving, but with the the world kind of changing today, and our peers having so many other pressures that they're dealing with today, I speak more about texting, drugging, and drinking and driving, for example. And I might talk to the itty-bitties about things like inclusion and treating others with respect and wearing your seatbelt and how important that may be. I talk to groups about physical and occupational therapy and the importance of that. And one of the big things I do like to talk about as well is the importance of medical research, wheelchair accessibility, and just inclusion as a whole.
So why is it important to share your story with us today?
Well, today, for instance, you know, school is right around the corner, and there'll be upcoming homecoming events and celebrations going on, and you know, I want to just share with people, you know, like what I've gone through, and hopefully, you know, help someone save a life and help another family from going through some of the hardships and pains that my family and myself have gone through. So that's the biggest reason of why I like to share my story in those regards. So,
if you could leave our viewers today with one message, what would that be?
Well, it would be simple, you know, just my voice, your choice. So what I mean by that is just hearing my story and take it in. Like, listen to my voice and learn from my experience, and then ultimately make good decisions and choices, because all of those things will help you to make better decisions when you get older. Because when you're young, you don't realize how much your decisions today can ultimately affect your future tomorrow. And I'm a perfect example of that. So,
On a positive note, you've got an event coming up.
I do. Yeah, it's April 24th of 2016. And I've talked about it on the show here before because it'll be our third annual This Is How We Roll fashion show, fundraiser, and community awareness event. So we got a new venue this year, which I'm really excited about. So that's Brookfield Suites in Brookfield, Wisconsin. So that's where that'll take place. And the proceeds will go ultimately to the Brian Reich Paralysis Foundation, which is a foundation that's very, very close to my heart. And I've been working with them for years. So that in a nutshell is the fashion show. So stay tuned for that one because it'll be exciting.
Congrats on that, all the work you put into that.
Thank
It
you.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Just a couple seconds left. How can somebody reach you if they would like to have you speak at their event?
Yeah, it's really simple. All you have to do is you can find me on Facebook. This is how I roll. This is how we roll for the fashion show. And then, just my personal account, Jenny Addis, or just go to my website, which I know you have, as well as my phone number. It's as simple as that. I'm out there, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, thanks so much for coming on again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. And I had so much fun, like always.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I'd like to also thank all our guests for stopping by today. And thank you for tuning in to Talk of the Town. We'll see you next time.